This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, poor prognosis. Physicians say they're too busy to teach at Cape Breton University's future medical school.
Federal funding. The Deputy Prime Minister comes to Bridgewater to talk childcare.
And who pays the bill? Police say the province should when officers are left to care for people in mental health crises.
A lovely day today and another nice one shaping up for Wednesday. A cool start, recovering nicely with lots of sun. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Some doctors in Cape Breton are raising concerns about a new medical school that's slated to open next year. Starting in 2025, Cape Breton University plans to enroll 30 new medical students a year.
But those students will need to be trained by doctors, and physicians in the area say they're already overworked and understaffed, and CBU has not shown them a clear plan that would address that. CBC's Kyle Moore has the story.
Dr. Catherine Kellogg runs a busy private practice in Sydney. The pediatrician is concerned about the lack of information being provided to physicians about CBU's new medical school slated to open in the fall of 2025.
I don't know. I think they're committed enough at this point. I don't know that they're going to change that, but I would hate to see this fail and it hurt recruitment rather than set Cape Breton up for a better future.
Cape Breton doctors already train 15 medical residents a year, and starting next fall, CBU plans to enroll 30 students annually. Kellogg says there are not enough hours in the day or enough doctors to take on new teaching duties at the university.
If you can't get in to see your family doctor because they're teaching, you're just going to wait that much longer, and that's going to have a negative impact on people's health and wait times in the emergency room and across the system.
CBU President David Dingwall was only available by phone and was adamant the university will not be pushing back the opening date.
No. Get that out of your goddamn head. We're not going to delay the opening of the med school. No, that's just not on the cards.
Dingwall says physicians have a valid reason to express concern, and they are attempting to try and resolve the issues.
We have to continue the dialogue between all physicians, particularly family physicians, as well as their respective representatives, to make sure that we get the appropriate mix for them and for the med school.
But Kellogg says there wasn't enough of that dialogue to begin with. She says she and her colleagues have repeatedly asked for detailed plans with no luck.
UPEI had done a study looking at what they needed to have in place to be able to get things off the ground, and it was detailed down to the level of how many call rooms do they need? And we've yet to see any of that level of information provided for us to feel reassured as the medical educators here in Cape Breton that we are setting up for success.
The medical school is under construction here behind me on campus. Kellogg believes if successful, it will help ease the local physician shortage. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
2 federal cabinet ministers were in Bridgewater today in a bid to convince Nova Scotians the millions of dollars Ottawa is spending on childcare will eventually reduce wait lists and make it cheaper for families. The federal government is sending the province an extra $20 million to expand childcare. That's on top of the $600 million already committed. As Preston Mulligan reports, the challenge now is infrastructure.
Groceries continue to grow as our children grow, more clothes as they continue to grow out of them. I won't even talk about the shoes.
A mother of 3, Federal Minister Jenna Sudd says she understands the cost of childcare. She and the Deputy Minister chose the daycare here at the Y in Bridgewater to highlight the $19.8 million their government is spending in Nova Scotia to expand the service. 175 children are still waiting for a spot here.
And that's why creating more spaces and getting children off of wait lists is my number one priority.
The federal money, though, is for not-for-profit daycares. But about half of the daycare operators in the province are private. And aside from some help with ECE wages, they're not eligible for any of the millions headed this way. Nova Scotia's minister responsible says that's on the former McNeil government, not her.
It is unfortunate that the agreement was negotiated by the prior Liberal government here in Nova Scotia quite hastily, and we didn't receive the benefit that many of the other provinces did for some inclusion of our private operators.
Regardless, there is no denying daycare is getting cheaper. It costs families $14 a day for a spot here at the Y in Bridgewater. That's half of what it was 2 years ago. There are more early childhood educators, too. It all comes down to space.
It takes time to build those centres, but we'll continue to do that and then work continually working to have the workforce ready to go when we do have those centres. So we'll keep at that. But yeah, getting the actual physical space takes a lot of work.
Smith says any funding she gets from Ottawa will go toward more space. She says she'll have some news on that soon. In the meantime, both levels of government say they're on track to offer $10 per day daycare by 2026. Preston Mulligan, CBC News, Bridgewater.
There are developments in the case of 4 teens accused of murder in Halifax. 2 16-year-olds and 2 14-year-olds are charged with second-degree murder in the killing of 16-year-old Ahmad El Marak last month. Today, the lawyer for one of the 16-year-olds was in court trying to get his trial date set. But that came to a stop when the Crown announced that it had new information bringing all 4 of the accused together in the case. That means there will be a single trial involving all of the accused. Most of September is tentatively set aside for a possible trial if the lawyers agree to hold the trial in youth court.
Police officers across the country are waiting for hours in hospital with people who are in mental health crisis. But police in the town of Bridgewater say something has to change. They say they're performing a health service and are asking the province to pay up. The CBC's Haley Ryan has more.
Bridgewater's Deputy Police Chief, Danny McPhee, says he sees it all the time. Officers showing up for someone in mental distress can make things worse.
This is a provincial responsibility. It's a provincial health crisis. It's not a crime spree, so it's not for us.
McPhee says his officers often spend 4 hours in Bridgewater's South Shore Regional Hospital, but have gone as long as 9 hours. That added up to more than 150 hours a year in 2021 and 2022. The hospital is busy, and McPhee says it needs more resources. Its mental health unit serves nearby counties, and the emergency room often takes overflow from other hospitals. Although police, reports like the Mass Casualty Commission, and advocates all agree police should not be the lead in these calls, that's the current reality across the province. Nova Scotia legislation requires police officers to stay with patients until a medical examination is done. In a small town where many people know each other, McPhee says it's especially stigmatizing.
They're sitting in that hospital room with armed police officers beside them in a busy room with their community looking at them.
That impact on police time and patience drove the town's Board of Police Commissioners to write to Health Minister Michelle Thompson 3 months ago. They said Bridgewater Police would track when officers waited more than 2 hours in the emergency room and send the bill to the province. Anything more than that, quote, impacts the ability of our officers to complete core police functions, posing a significant risk to general public safety. Bridgewater Mayor David Mitchell applauds the move and says every dollar counts when policing is a major town expense at $5 million a year.
It's important for the taxpayers that they see that they're not being charged for something that they shouldn't be.
The province's Office of Addictions and Mental Health says they're aware of police concerns, but have not spoken directly to the Bridgewater force. They say they are making improvements to emergency care and working on a crisis response pilot that would be led by civilians. Haley Ryan, CBC News, Bridgewater.
A new program is underway in Nova Scotia to address domestic violence. A Dalhousie researcher is embedding with IWK Health to better help those who end up in the healthcare system as a result of gender-based violence.
I mean, we know we need to see a sea change in the healthcare system for how violence is responded to. We don't expect to completely resolve all of the issues over the next 4 years, but I do think that we can make some really solid changes. For instance, improving data collection around violence, making sure that when patients are disclosing that they are connected to resources that are available within the health system and within community.
And I talked to Dalhousie researcher Alexa Yakubovich about the new program and how it will work. That's our newsmaker just after 6:30.
All right, we'll eventually get to Ryan there on a day where not too many people are complaining about the weather, I would think.
Yes, definitely worth the wait to talk to you about what a beautiful day it was today.
Yeah, and showing the contrast, again, the black screen and the dramatic
really dramatic
reveal with those high temperatures today. Thanks so much, Tom and Amy. Yeah, maybe the gremlins in the system all had a bit too much sun today, but it was so beautiful, wasn't it? Today was probably, for many folks, like the best day so far this season. You can see 22 in Halifax, even downtown, 23 at Keji. That was our hotspot. Certainly some sea breezes set up in through Cape Breton and in through the west as well. Now, we mentioned last night that there was a frost advisory for western areas given the early start to the frost advisory season. Now we are, again, May 15th is tomorrow morning, so that is why we have a frost advisory now in effect for the east as well. Frost advisory season is in for everybody, and tonight the greatest risk is in the east with temperatures not nearly as cool as last night for most of us. But we will drop into the low single digits here, low-lying areas, patchy frost possible through the east, so be mindful of that if you were an extremely eager beaver and have stuff in the ground that's frost sensitive. Tomorrow, another terrific day. Now, we will see the clouds building in a little earlier throughout the afternoon for western areas, and there is the very slightest risk of a pop-up shower in through the south and west of the province for tomorrow afternoon. But otherwise, another beautiful day. Temperatures will hit 20 for many, into the low 20s, as you can see. A little cooler again in those sea breezes for places in the west and in through Cape Breton. Now, of course, the long-range forecast, what everybody is focused on as we head towards a long weekend. And we are looking at, again, some unsettled weather off to our south, just throwing some moisture into the mix, a few showers in the mix again on Thursday. Friday looks drier now. And in fact, this system we were worried about for the weekend that was going to be awfully close looks a little bit further south. And so that does have impacts to that 7-day forecast. And this is what we call a teaser as we talk about that with your 7-day coming up.
Keeping us hanging.
All right. Pins and needles. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Fisheries and Oceans officials have partially shut down some types of fishing in part of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. It follows the spotting of an endangered right whale entangled in fishing gear off New Brunswick. Brett Ruskin is following the story for us tonight.
There are so few North Atlantic right whales remaining in the ocean that scientists have been able to name each and every one of them. So this whale that we're speaking about today is, well, EG4510 or Sheila. It was spotted by DFO flyovers with Cessna planes that crisscross the Gulf of St. Lawrence. There's also undersea acoustic gliders that have been deployed by researchers to listen for whales. The planes are looking for whales. When one is detected, there is a zone, a 2,000 square kilometer zone or so, where DFO says there's no fishing allowed for 15 days using fixed line traps. So those long lines that connect buoys on the surface to heavy traps, either crab traps or lobster traps on the bottom, that in some cases snare and snag whales as they swim past. Those traps are being removed as we speak by crews in that 2,000 square kilometer zone in an effort to try to prevent any additional entanglements around Sheila, the whale, or any other whales that are traveling with Sheila. Again, the North Atlantic right whale is this critically endangered species, travels up the eastern seaboard every year, likely following food up to warmer waters, and enters the Gulf of St. Lawrence, where there is all that fishing gear waiting for them. So this is this effort to create this zone to protect whales that are spotted is the same kind of regulations and rules that have been in place same as last year as well. Something that is inconvenient but necessary according to some fishing crews, but inadequate according to some conservation groups. There's about 350 to 360 of these animals left in the oceans, and there's already been 4 confirmed deaths this year. So what's going to happen with Sheila? Well, DFO crews are going to be once again in the air looking to see if they can spot her again, if conditions present themselves, and if conditions are perfect to allow for an operation to try and go and visit the whale to do a disentanglement operation. They will consider that in the days ahead. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, if you've ever caught a big fish, your first instinct might be to snap a picture. But wildlife experts on PEI are warning people that behavior is putting fish at risk. They say some people are holding fish out of the water for too long after they catch them, and the fish are suffering after they're released. Nancy Russell has more.
Rosie McFarlane is a fisheries biologist, but also an avid angler. But she is careful when she catches a fish to release it as quickly and gently as possible. But she says that's not what she is seeing in some photos this spring posted on social media, in particular people holding Atlantic salmon.
People are excited when they catch a salmon, and I understand that. You do see sometimes that the fish is being taken on the bank, away from the river, and it's being held up for an extended period of time, probably to get a number of photographs.
Early in the season, we did see some photos online of people holding salmon up out of the water or laying them on the bank. So that's a bit concerning, as they are a sensitive fish, so we want to make sure they're handled with care.
Atlantic salmon are considered a species of special concern on PEI. Anglers are not allowed to keep them and are limited to 2 catch and release a day. They also need to use barbless hooks to make releasing them easier.
When those salmon are caught, they're quite sensitive to being handled because they haven't eaten since, they haven't eaten all winter, actually. So they're gorging themselves on smelts, and they're easily caught.
There are also concerns about these salmon, the 2-year-olds, called smolts.
They spend 2 years in fresh water before they go out to sea. So right now, in middle of May, you will see a mass exodus of smolts. And if they're catching a number of those, maybe it's just moved to another spot or another river until that smolt run has gone, because they don't handle a lot of abuse very well at that time of their lives.
There are new signs at 2 popular fishing spots on the Munro River, helping anglers to know what to look for.
So we'd want people to be aware that there's a possibility that they could catch those fish, and if they do, know how to properly identify it so that they can release it carefully back into the river so that it has the best chance of survival.
McFarlane says there are about 24 rivers across PEI that still have salmon runs in them. That's down from 70 to 80 rivers historically.
Considering everything that it's gone through in the river and going to the ocean and back again. So, anything we can do to make their trip out a little easier is what we're asking.
Nancy Russell, CBC News, Peaks.
Frito-Lay Canada is recalling 2 of its most popular snacks due to a possible risk of salmonella. The recall applies to Munchie's Original Snack Mix and Sun Chips Harvest Cheddar flavored multigrain snacks. No other flavors of Sun Chips are impacted. A statement from the company says they were informed by the seasoning supplier that an ingredient added by a third party was potentially contaminated with salmonella. Frito-Lay says it has not found any salmonella in the seasoning, but it's going ahead with the recall out of an abundance of caution. The Sun Chips with best before dates between June 18th and August 22nd are affected, and the Munchies with dates between July 16th and September 10th, 2025. Coming up, Trump's former lawyer and fixer was on the stand for a second day. Michael Cohen faced a fierce cross-examination from Trump's lawyers.
And how a grad student in British Columbia is working to protect and conserve wildlife impacted by wildfires.
And Kingsburg Beach was a pretty nice spot to be today. Ryan is back next with his weather forecast, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Well, the convertibles were out today, the shorts too. What
Lots
a day.
of smiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody pretty happy about it.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of sandals going on, and it's that time of year. Today was really the first day where pretty much province-wide it felt like summer. Don't say it too loudly, you'll scare it away.
Not quite here yet.
Yeah, but and you even look at a scene like this in beautiful Lunenburg, and
it looks pretty summery there.
It
certainly does. Now, again, this is the time of year where that sea breeze is just so. Again, we're keeping an eye on those.
Rush hour. That's 2 cars tonight.
That's right, but they're going the proper speed. We like to see that.
They know we're watching, right?
Spy on them here. 15 degrees. So, yeah, it is definitely cooler along the coast, but even that, right along the coast, that's not a bad temp for this time of year. It can obviously get a whole lot cooler, and as we look at those temperatures right now, you can see where the sea breeze certainly set up in Cheticamp at 9 degrees, 8 in Sydney. We got double digits in through Ingonish Beach and Port Hawkesbury, 21 at the Halifax Airport. That is one of our hotter spots. 12 at Western Head, and yeah, you can see Westport there on the Digby Neck, just at 10 degrees. So the winds have been relatively light today, which has really kind of led to that sea breeze setup, right? And as we look at the gusts, not too gusty, just those light sea breezes. Now this afternoon, we have been seeing those clouds kind of building in across Cape Breton, Guysborough County, edging into Antigonish County as well. Further to the west, we've been watching some showers rolling in to New Brunswick, but these are going to be remaining to the north, and they won't be impacting us here in Nova Scotia. We're watching this system that is going to stay offshore for us, won't be impacting us, and high pressure just kind of well to our south, but we're under that ridge, and that's going to hold us pretty comfy over the next couple of days, though we will see the clouds kind of trying to build in towards the latter part of the week from that system spinning off to the south. Boy, the forecast models have been having a really difficult time nailing that down, so we'll do our best to update you here. Temperatures into the 20s in through Edmonton, and of course keeping an eye on Fort McMurray and the wildfire situation, not only there, but across Western Canada. It's really not turning out to be a good situation, and our obviously fingers are crossed that they can get some beneficial rain soon there to ease the concerns, the wildfire risk, which continues to grow. Tonight, closer to home, we are watching temperatures that are going to be in the mid-single digits for most, but low single digits, especially in low-lying areas here in the east. That's why there is a frost advisory in effect for the eastern half of the mainland. So a heads up on that as we look into Tuesday night and into Wednesday, rather. We are going to be seeing, I think, a solid mix of sun and cloud across Cape Breton tomorrow. A mostly sunny start across the rest of the province. There is just a very isolated chance of a pop-up shower here in the interior tomorrow afternoon, but it's a very isolated risk. No doubt the best chances will be, say, Kedgie up towards the New Ross area. But other than that, it is going to be another dynamite day across the province. Now, again, sea breezes are going to be the name of the game. So we've got cooler in those sea breezes tomorrow, but we'll likely crack 20 in the interior parts of Cape Breton for tomorrow. 20 degrees Antigonish, but again, cooler in the onshore sea breezes, more like mid-teens to even low teens, but should get into the 22 range New Glasgow down through Truro. Halifax right around 20 degrees yet again, but cooler along the coast. From Windsor through the valley into the 20s, and their hot spots tomorrow will be here through Kedgie, Bridgewater up towards New Ross, those interior parts of the province, nicely shielded from the sea breezes all around. Now Thursday there will be a little more cloud cover in the mix and the isolated chance of showers in through western areas of the province. As we see, the clouds will just be a little more stubborn here, and there are those isolated shower chances primarily in through the south and west, but overall not a bad day. Friday's actually looking a little more favorable now, a little more sun in the mix. System passing to our south. We'll try to throw some cloud cover into the mix Friday, Saturday, no doubt about that. We'll be keeping an eye on things with some very isolated shower chances both days. Even Sunday, Monday, yeah, shower chances, but neither day is looking like a washout, Tom and Amy. The big thing for this weekend, looks like there will be a southerly flow for the weekend. So the Atlantic coastline will be cooler than the valley and the North Shore. So that'll be something we have to keep an eye on. And just remember that big province, big variable temperatures, especially with that onshore sea breeze.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Canada's wildfire season is off to an early start in parts of the country with communities under threat. They also have a big impact on wildlife, including snakes.
In the Northwest Territories, red-sided garter snakes emerged from hibernation to mate in the spring. But a significant amount of their habitat was burned in last year's fire, which has put them at risk.
A graduate student from BC is working in the Fort Smith area to help protect and conserve the species.
So there is a snake right there. So I'm Johanna Stewart. I am starting my master's research looking at red-sided garter snakes and particularly the post-fire impacts on this population. We are close to Fort Smith right now in the Fort Smith area, but in Wood Buffalo National Park at the Salt River Day Use area. This is one of the study sites that I am looking at. There is a known kind of resident population of red-sided garter snakes that overwinters here and comes out in the springtime. So we are looking to study those snakes as they are coming out of hibernation, trying to count them. We take some data from them around length, weight, give them a little pit tag or a personal identification tag. We have a really special population here in the Northwest Territories. And it also means that this species is vulnerable. We don't have the same number of snakes since we're at the very northern edge of their range. There's fewer snakes here. They have less kind of available habitat that meets their requirements. And so they are at risk when a significant event like a fire burns up their habitat, or if they lose significant numbers of snakes in their population. It's hard for them to recover from that. And so it's really important that we are studying this species, studying the impacts of the fire, and trying to figure out what are the appropriate management actions, what we can be doing to help conserve this species, to protect their habitat, and make sure that they can recover from events like last year's fire. We can see there's so many trees that have burned and fallen. Their habitat has just definitely changed. It's pretty devastating. It's really hard to see a landscape that has been changed so much by fire. I mean, we know obviously that fire is a natural part of the ecosystem in a boreal forest, but just the extent, the amount of area, and the severity of the burn that we are seeing where forests are completely gone, that's really hard to see. But I think it's also really important to see. It's really important to be looking at that, to be thinking about what the effects are for wildlife and for communities.
And up next, I'll talk with Dalhousie University researcher Alexa Yakubovich, and I'll ask about a new project to strengthen the healthcare response to victims of gender-based violence. That is our Newsmaker.
Stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News.
A Dalhousie University researcher is partnering with IWK Health to tackle violence against women. The aim is to develop interventions with the potential to save lives. I'm joined now by Alexa Yakubovich, community health researcher at Dalhousie. So first of all, how is this program going to work?
So we are focused around how we can strengthen the health system response to violence against women, and we're going to be embedded within IWK Health to do that work.
Well, what supports are needed right now that just aren't there?
So we know that violence against women has a number of health consequences that lead people who are experiencing this violence to end up in the health system. We need to make sure that those people are being acknowledged by their care providers for having experienced violence and then being connected with the supports that they need.
And how do you measure how many women are impacted by this kind of violence?
So it's really challenging right now. We actually don't know exactly how many women who are accessing healthcare services are experiencing violence, and in part that's because providers aren't systematically asking questions around violence. So that's really the first piece of it.
And not all women actually report the violence either, correct?
Exactly, and so they really need to be in a supportive care environment where they feel comfortable to disclose, and then that disclosure needs to be handled non-judgmentally and safely.
And can you talk a bit about how the housing crunch might be impacting women who want to get, women and men who want to get out of intimate partner violence?
Yeah, absolutely. So intimate partner violence is the leading cause of women experiencing homelessness. And at the same time, homelessness can also lead to women being more vulnerable to experiencing violence. So it is a bit of a vicious cycle. So we know that as we're seeing a rise in homelessness, we are also seeing a rise in women's homelessness and women's experiences of violence.
And the Mass Casualty Commission called gender-based violence an epidemic. Are you seeing any evidence of change coming as a result of that reporting?
Absolutely. So we work in partnership with care providers, leaders, and decision makers across the province, and we absolutely see a newfound commitment to resolving these issues and really taking up the recommendations of the Mass Casualty Commission, which really makes this an amazing time to be doing this research and bringing everyone on board for how we can integrate the health system into a whole of society response to end gender-based violence.
How many people are involved in this project?
Too many to count, to be honest, and it continues to grow every day. Every day we're asking ourselves, do we have the right people on board? So we have numerous partners, like I said, across the healthcare system, in government, and across community as well, and we continue to grow that partnership, and we'll do so over the next 4 years.
So it's a 4-year strategy.
That's right.
And what year by year are your goals?
So we have a number of different goals over the next 4 years, but broadly, the first year is really making sure that we have the right partners in place, that we have a solid understanding of what initiatives are happening at the IWK and involving the IWK around violence. And then it's working on building on strengthening those initiatives and also adding new ones over the next 3 years thereafter.
And the end goal, how much change do you think you can make over that period?
I mean, we know we need to see a sea change in the healthcare system for how violence is responded to. We don't expect to completely resolve all of the issues over the next 4 years, but I do think that we can make some really solid changes. For instance, improving data collection around violence, making sure that when patients are disclosing that they are connected to resources that are available within the health system and within community.
And what is the biggest piece you think is missing right now?
If I had to pick one, I think the biggest one is around training. What we've been hearing from healthcare providers is that they don't have up-to-date training on different forms of violence against women, like domestic and sexualized violence. And so we really need to bring everybody working in the healthcare system, and especially those in priority areas most likely to see patients experiencing violence, up to date with a modern understanding of the dynamics of intimate partner violence and sexual violence.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, an evacuation order is issued for Fort McMurray as a wildfire threatening the community draws closer.
Welcome back. Residents in parts of Fort McMurray, Alberta, have been ordered to leave their homes because of an encroaching wildfire.
Authorities say crews will be better able to battle the blaze if nearby residential areas are vacated.
Residents are being told to leave by 4 p.m. local time. People who are unable to leave on their own have been asked to report to designated muster points where transit buses will be on standby to take them to safety.
A wildfire threatening the community has now consumed almost 10,000 hectares as shifting winds push the flames closer to the municipality. It has now reached areas burned in 2016 when a wildfire swept through the community, triggering the largest evacuation in Alberta history. Well, Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer testified for a second day at his hush money trial in New York. Michael Cohen faced a fierce round of questioning as Trump's lawyers attacked his credibility as a witness during cross-examination. Earlier, he told the court he sent fake invoices to cover up payments made to two women who said they had affairs with Trump. Chris Glover has this report.
A tourist photo in the White House like millions before, but this one of Michael Cohen is key evidence. Prosecutors say it proves Cohen was there in February 2017 to meet then-President Trump.
Michael, did you get some sleep last night?
Back for day two, Cohen's testimony was corroborated not just with photos, but also accounting documents, testifying he fabricated these invoices of $35,000 per month. Most of the checks signed by Donald Trump. Were any of those checks, in fact, for work during the months described in those check stubs, the prosecution asked Cohen? No, ma'am, Cohen replied.
You had a very mild-mannered, cooperative, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am type of witness, which is not the person that he is.
Right.
So we're going to see.
They say I'm Mr. Trump's pit bull, that I am his, right-hand man. He is a racist.
A lot has been made about Cohen's calm candor before prosecutors. The disbarred lawyer, known as a hothead, has served jail time for lying under oath. So the prosecution leaning on documents like this one, outlining the alleged reimbursement scheme to back up his testimony.
We have to be able to show that Donald Trump not only knew about this whole process, but intended for it to violate the law.
The reimbursements disguised as legal expenses instead of their true nature, the prosecution is arguing, payments to suppress a catastrophic story of an affair and help Trump win the White House. Anticipating attacks on Cohen's credibility, the prosecution leaned in first, getting Cohen to acknowledge his checkered past. Questioned for his repeated lying, Cohen testified he did it out of loyalty and in order to protect Trump.
This is a man who is clearly on a mission for personal revenge, and who is widely known as a witness who has trouble with the truth.
Trump finally getting some support from political allies at court, while inside all afternoon, the defense painting Cohen as a Trump-hating, money-hungry liar.
You ask me questions, I'm not allowed to respond.
Yet more bad news for Trump, an appeals court rejecting his attempt to have his much-hated gag order repealed. Chris Glover, CBC News, New York.
The delivery of aid into Gaza is grinding to a halt. The key border crossing at Rafah remains closed, and Israeli protesters have been assaulting shipments in other areas. CBC's Chris Brown has the latest.
Gaza is being strangled. There's hardly any food, water, or shelter after a week when most aid trucks were blocked from delivering their supplies when Israel captured a key border crossing. Hamdi Abu Raida and his family are back in the rubble of Han Yunis after they had initially fled to Rafah.
Prices here so expensive, people can't get enough food. There is no good meal. We can't even take meat because it's so expensive.
He fears what will happen when the supplies his family brought with them are exhausted.
I have message to all the world from humanity side, also from Muslim side, that we are human, we are like you.
Israel and Egypt are blaming each other for the aid crisis. Israel says Egypt could reopen the crossing in Rafah, but won't, while Egypt says it's Israel's attack on the city that's preventing aid trucks from getting through. But other assistance for Gaza is also being blocked en route by Israeli protesters. On Monday, a group attacked a convoy that was traveling through the West Bank, and later some of the trucks were burned. We're afraid of approaching the checkpoint because of the rioting of the settlers, said one fearful Palestinian driver. The U.S., Britain, and others are demanding Israel protect the convoys. Israel said some trucks managed to enter Gaza through a northern crossing, but that's just a fraction of the hundreds of deliveries needed every day.
We have never faced a situation like this.
Lauren Ravone of Oxfam Canada says the aid blockage and the immense number of people displaced from Rafah, 450,000 and counting, have created staggering challenges.
Aid workers are literally being targeted, and they're also on the move, on the run with the people they're serving. So, Oxfam builds latrines, the hand washing stations. Now we're having to build them so that they can be folded up, carried, and then reinstalled elsewhere.
Israel will soon be back in court again over Gaza as the UN's International Court of Justice holds more hearings later this week. It could issue more emergency orders for Israel to alleviate the aid situation. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken paid an unannounced visit to Kyiv today to show solidarity with Ukraine. He reinforced his country's commitment to Ukraine in the face of an increasingly intense new Russian offensive.
A significant majority of Americans believe we should continue to provide assistance to Ukraine. Indeed, the American people's support for Ukraine has been consistent over the course of the war. It has never wavered.
Blinken met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the country's foreign minister. This marks the first visit by a senior U.S. official since Congress passed the long-delayed $61 billion military aid package for Ukraine last month. Blinken admitted that the delay has left Ukraine more vulnerable to Russian attacks.
A Toronto area man thought he'd fought Goliath and won. He disputed some bank fees, and the bank eventually agreed to reimburse him. Turns out there were strings attached. He'd have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, an increasingly common practice, according to lawyers who say they're being used far too often for little reason. Erica Johnson has our Go Public investigation.
Gwang-Hu Tsui was preparing his business taxes when he noticed an item on his bank account statement, a $1.50 fee, sometimes several times going back months. Under his plan, his financial advisor said,
"You get 5 free transactions every month." I said, "That's great. Does that include e-transfer?" He said, "Yes."
But when he heads to his TD branch, he finds out e-transfers aren't included. He files a complaint. TD eventually agrees to pay back those fees and offers a small bonus as a goodwill gesture. But when the paperwork arrives, it includes a clause saying the settlement is confidential.
I was really stunned, to be honest, because I didn't do anything wrong. And why do you try to shut me up?
He refuses to sign. The bank says no confidential contract, no money.
That is just unfair, and that is unethical.
Go Public also heard from a BMO customer forced to sign a gag order if he wanted to get back half the money stolen in e-transfer fraud.
They just want me to shut up. And I guess that's it.
No one in Canada tracks how often non-disclosure agreements are used. Initially created to protect trade secrets or intellectual property, lawyers say they're increasingly popular to silence people who've been wronged in cases ranging from financial disputes and insurance claims to sexual assault cases. Like the woman who alleged she was assaulted by hockey players on the men's World Junior team.
I was told that I had no option if I wanted to settle.
This requirement to try and keep people silent about almost anything is not democratic, and it suppresses freedom of expression.
Legislation to restrict the use of NDAs has been introduced in several provinces and passed in PEI. After Go Public contacted TD and BMO, both banks compensated their customers. TD apologized to Gwang-Hu Tsui, saying he should never have been asked to sign a confidential contract. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still with banking, it's convenient to deposit a check using a mobile phone, but not so helpful when a check you have written is cashed more than once. Leah Henry has more from Montreal.
Have you ever popped a check into a birthday card? Or use a check to pay for your rent, maybe work on your house or your kids' summer camp? Canadians wrote more than 276 million checks last year. Most are cashed using a mobile banking app. You take a picture of your check and voila, it's deposited into your account. But did you know that you can deposit a check more than once? That's what happened to Christopher Michaels. About a month ago, he noticed a $150 check on his bank records he didn't remember writing.
There's not a lot of checks that typically go through that particular account, so it was just odd.
When he took a closer look, it was a check he'd given as a wedding gift 18 months earlier. The check was first cashed in July 2022, and again in December 2023 using a mobile app. Michaels reported it to his Royal Bank branch and filed a police report. But he's upset that his bank didn't detect it in the first place.
I think it's definitely like a flaw in the system.
But some say banks haven't done much to fix that flaw.
To compensate a few thousand victims a few $100s each is so much cheaper than designing a whole new system to try to prevent this fraud that they just ignore it.
He says he hasn't used a check in years and says people should use e-transfers instead. The Canadian Bankers Association wouldn't discuss specifically what it does to prevent and detect check fraud, but said they're constantly evolving their security measures to protect their customers. They say you should check your accounts often, look for any double deposits, but if it's been more than 90 days, you might not get your money back. Michaels only caught his double deposit 5 months later, but after CBC contacted Royal Bank, he got his money back, along with an apology.
In my case, it's $150. It's not a lot. But what about if I'm a person who lives like paycheck to paycheck? That money could be very very important.
He thinks banks need to do a better job of protecting people's money.
That was the CBC's Leah Henry in Montreal.
Canadian writer and master of the short story Alice Munro has died. She was born in Wingham, Ontario, and became known as Canada's Chekhov. Munro was celebrated worldwide, winning 3 Governor General Awards, 2 Giller Prizes, and the Man Booker Prize. She became the first Canadian to win the Nobel Prize for Literature at the age of 82. She wrote about the lives of people that some called ordinary. Munro had reportedly been battling dementia for at least a dozen years. Alice Munro was 92 years old.
Canada's main stock index edged lower today, led by weakness in the energy stocks. Here's a look now at the markets as we head to break. Yeah, pretty tough to top today as spring days go for sure.
But visually, you still have some memories from the weekend.
Yeah, everybody's still, you know,
the glow
on a
afterglow, exactly.
nice, the post glow from the Northern Lights, which put on, of course, a spectacular show over the weekend. And most of the pictures I did receive came from the Valley, although many from all across the province. But this one, we're going to go back to the edge of the Valley, and yes, the beautiful area enhanced border.
Oh, isn't that cool?
Lots of green there, huh?
Very good, Cal.
Yeah. Cal Collins, thank you so much. Love to see pictures from your neck of the woods. And Cal is a frequent contributor here. And thanks to Cal again and to everybody over the last few days for sending your pictures in. You can see tomorrow it looks like another lovely day. We'll see light sea breezes setting up, so that'll keep coastal temperatures cooler. But inland will be back into the 20 to 24 range. So we'll actually be a little bit warmer tomorrow than we were today. In through the interior parts of the province. Looks like places like Keji may crack 25 tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, it's going to be lovely. For Thursday, we will see a bit more cloud in the mix and a better chance for some showers, but they still will be isolated for, say, the western half of the province, as the clouds will be building in there through the later stages of Wednesday, more so for Wednesday night and into Thursday. And you can see clouds looking kind of dominant there, but we'll see some sunny breaks as well. And for Friday as well, it looks like, you know, the clouds will be dominant at times, but I do think we'll see some sunny breaks. Overall, though, it is looking drier Friday, Saturday, and the shower chances on Sunday look less. And even Monday, again, it's a chance of showers, but far from a washout. As I said in the 7-day, Tom and Amy, it looks like kind of a relentless southerly flow through the weekend. So if you're really looking for the warmest temps, I'm going to want to head to the north or be in the north.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Ryan. Well, some golfers in Missouri saw something on the green they weren't expecting. Take a look at this.
Oh, wow.
This is wild. This was the scene yesterday as a tornado touched down after a group of golfers hit the links. Thankfully, there were no reported injuries or damage to the course.
The 2024 tornado season, in the United States has already been one of the most active in recent years. The season typically begins to ramp up in April, and there have been 237 tornadoes reported so far in the month of May alone.
That is a lot.
Yeah, I'd be heading to the clubhouse real fast if that was happening on the course. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.